Like I'm sure every other young girl has done, I love playing dress-up. I'd raid my mom's closet and try on all of her fancy clothes, pretending to be a princess or a ballerina. Sometimes my best friend Katie would come over and we'd put on fashion shows together. One stormy fall afternoon, my mom said I could stay in and play while she ran errands. I went straight to that treasure trove of a closet, the smell of perfume and old fabric greeting me. I slipped into one of my mom's long, flouncy dresses. It made me feel like I was floating on a cloud. Looking in the mirror, I thought I needed something else. That's when I saw it, a dusty old hat box sitting high on the shelf. With a bit of effort, I pulled it down, excited to see what was inside. Instead of a hat, there was an antique-looking doll. Porcelain hands and feet peeked out of a yellowed satin dress, and a pair of unblinking eyes stared up at me. It wasn't exactly pretty, but there was something about it that drew me in. Katie could be the princess, and I'd play the old lady with this doll as my companion. It would be perfect. As Katie and I played in my room, the storm outside raged. I loved the sound of the rain on the roof, but the occasional booming thunder made me jump. With each jolt, the old doll seemed to shift, its eyes glinting in the gloom of the room. Katie didn't like it, but I thought the doll just added to the atmosphere. After a while, Katie said she wanted to go make a snack. Usually we'd go together, but I was starting to get lost in my own little world and wanted to stay. "Alright," I said, distracted, "but hurry back." When Katie didn't come back right away, I started to get worried. The storm was picking up, and the house felt a lot creakier without her around. "Katie? Hello?" I called. Only silence answered, along with the insistent tapping of rain on the windows. Then I heard it. It wasn't loud, but it was definitely there. I froze, the hairs on my arms standing on end. The sound came again, closer this time. My heart pounded in my chest. Surely it was just the wind, or maybe Katie playing a trick on me? I grabbed the old doll for comfort, its hard porcelain surprisingly cold in my hands. That's when I noticed. The doll was facing the doorway. I hadn't turned it that way. I blinked, but it was still looking toward the hall. A wave of nausea washed over me. Whatever was out there, it was getting closer. I didn't know what to do. Should I run to the front door? Hide in the closet? My legs felt like lead. Suddenly, a dark shape loomed in the doorway. It was tall and thin, and it didn't look quite human. Terrified, I screamed. It was a long, shrill note that drowned out the storm. I threw the doll at the shadow, not even thinking, just acting on blind instinct. It made a harsh thud as it connected. In that moment, the shadow recoiled, disappearing back into the hallway. Katie bolted into the room then, looking pale. "Did you hear that? What was it?" she cried. I didn't answer. I was still trying to catch my breath. My eyes fixed on the doorway, waiting for that monstrous shape to return. When it didn't, I slowly got to my feet, my dress still hanging around me like a deflated balloon. Neither of us ever mentioned the shadow again. We never talked about the doll either. From that day on, thunderstorms no longer brought me comfort, and the thought of my mom's closet sends a shiver down my spine. Sometimes, I swear I feel those unblinking doll's eyes on me in the dark, and then I imagine that soft shuffling sound getting louder and louder. Soon after we first started dating, my wife Emily and I started going camping together, and our mutual interest in the outdoors was one of the things that brought us together. One time we visited one of our favorite sites. The air had that familiar summer buzz, and even in the shade of the tall pines, there was a heat you could feel in the stillness. Emily and I loved getting away. Camping was definitely our thing. No phones, no distractions, just us and the raw beauty of nature around us. We picked a secluded spot near the lake. As the sun dipped lower, that golden light you only get in late summer spilled over the water. I watched Emily carefully balance on a fallen log, snapping photos. "Incoming storm front," I warned, pointing to the clouds massing on the horizon. "Probably just a drizzle, but we should finish setting up." Emily's laughter carried across the still water. "Relax, city boy. That's miles away." We worked fast, the snap of the tent poles cutting through the birdsong. By the time the first fat raindrops fell, we were snug inside, that nylon barrier between us and the world. The smell of wet leaves and fresh rain filled the air. Emily snuggled against me. "See? Storms aren't so bad." Then it happened. Not the roll of thunder you'd expect. The air itself seemed to crackle. The force of the impact shuddered through the ground, and a flash blinded us, even through the tent fabric. What the hell was that? I swore, my heart pounding a wild rhythm in my chest. In the dim light, I saw Emily's eyes, wide and shocked, the laughter gone. The rain intensified. It wasn't a drizzle anymore, but a furious drumming against the tent walls. And it wasn't just the rain, though. It took a moment to place it. Wind. But it sounded wrong. Like nothing I'd ever heard before. Emily and I pressed our faces to the tent wall. The trees were bending in ways trees shouldn't. Branches snapped with a terrifying crack. The wind turned into a deafening roar, and that's when I saw it. In the swirling storm, a funnel shape was forming near the lake. My blood ran cold. It wasn't headed directly for us, but in this chaos, anything could happen. Emily, we need to get out of here. We fumbled in the darkness for our boots and flashlights. In the flickering light, Emily's face looked pale as a ghost. As soon as I unzipped the tent, the wind nearly ripped it from my hand. The force would have knocked us over if we hadn't been gripping the poles. The rain felt like tiny stones hitting our skin. I yelled over the din, "The car, it's sturdier." We made a stumbling run, the trees thrashing around us. Each flash of lightning revealed a landscape transformed, a scene of absolute destruction. We reached the car, panting, drenched, but alive. I slammed the door and locked us in. The wind howled, rocking the car violently. Through the rain-streaked glass, I saw debris whirling past. A massive tree snapped, its crown crashing down just yards from us. "Just hold on," I gritted out, trying to keep my own fear from shaking my voice. Emily wasn't crying, but tears welled up in her eyes. She grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard I winced. We stayed like that for an unimaginable amount of time, watching the fury of the storm unfold around us until the wind lessened, the rain turned into a drizzle, and that awful roar faded away. When it was safe to emerge, we stepped out into a changed world. The ground was littered with broken branches and overturned leaves, and the air held a strange stillness, no longer the buzzing warmth of a summer day. We barely spoke as we surveyed the wreckage, picking our way through the debris to the campsite. The tent was a mangled mess. I looked at Emily. Her eyes were filled with shock, with a sliver of something else, something I felt too. The beauty of a thunderstorm had always thrilled me, but now I was left with a sense of awe mixed with chilling fear. Camping, once our escape, felt tainted. As we drove out of the forest, the sun weakly breaking through the clouds, I knew that neither of us would ever look at a gathering storm the same way again. When I was a kid, my parents went out at night fairly regularly, and as I was generally well behaved, eventually they stopped getting me a babysitter. On one particular night, the rumble of thunder seemed to shake the whole house. Rain lashed against the windows, a relentless drumming that filled the silence left by Mom and Dad's absence. They were at a work dinner tonight, leaving 10-year-old me with a microwave pizza and a stern warning to be in bed by 10. Easy enough, especially with a good book and the comforting glow of the nightlight in the hallway. At first the storm was exciting. I curled up on the couch, the flashes of lightning momentarily illuminating my room like a strobe light. It was like a private light show, complete with a free soundtrack of booming thunder. But, as the hours ticked by, the storm lost its novelty. The wind howled like a banshee, and the rain sounded angry, insistent. I finished my book ages ago, and boredom gnawed at me. Sneaking downstairs for a glass of milk seemed like a good idea. That's when I heard it. It came from the back door, a soft, almost hesitant creak. My hand froze on the refrigerator door, the milk forgotten. I strained to hear, heart hammering a frantic tattoo in my chest. Another creak. This time it was louder and even more insistent. My stomach lurched. Who would be trying to get in during a storm like this? My mind raced, conjuring images of burglars from bad movies. I tiptoed to the living room window, trying to peer into the darkness. Rain blurred the view, but I could just make out the silhouette of a tree swaying violently in the wind. Maybe the wind was just rattling the door? But then I heard a new sound. It was like someone bumping into the door. Fear coiled around me, icy and constricting. I couldn't stay by the window anymore. I retreated to the hallway, my back pressed against the wall. The silence that followed the thud was worse than the creaking. It stretched on, each tick of the clock an eternity. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I crept toward the phone on the kitchen counter. Just then, another sound. This time it was the unmistakable rattle of the doorknob. My breath hitched, and my fingers fumbled with the phone, finally managing to grab it. But who would I call? Mom and Dad wouldn't be back for hours. Panic surged through me. I backed away from the phone, my gaze falling on the baseball bat. Dad always made sure to keep it by the door, just in case. It felt heavy in my small hands, but it was my only weapon. I took a deep breath, trying to silence the frantic beat of my heart. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind slamming against the house, sent shivers down my spine. Thankfully, the rattling at the door didn't come again. The storm seemed to be losing its intensity, the thunder rolling away in the distance. Slowly, the rain began to taper off too. By the time Mom and Dad finally got home, soaked and apologetic, the house was silent. I told them about the storm, my voice shaky, but I didn't mention the noises. Maybe it was just the wind after all. But even now, years later, a stormy night brings back that chilling fear. The memory of a small boy alone in the dark with something lurking outside.